and welcome to the Tech and Toast podcast. We simplify the way you buy and manage your hospitality tech. You can click through to techontoast.community where you can search our marketplace, attend our events, grab your free tech audit, and we will help you visualize your tech stack as you grow into 2024. Meanwhile, summer in Australia.
Hey, Lou, do you think we should sponsor the Tech on Toast podcast? I mean, I really like Chris and I really like what it's all about.
Yeah, I think that's a ripper idea, LP. It's a perfect fit for what we do at Red Cat.
I mean, I agree. I'm just not sure how we get our message across around like Red Cat specializing in multi-site groups, like cafe groups and fast casual groups and QSRs and all that. Maybe
we mention some of our customers like Nando's in Australia, New Zealand, the restaurants at the Aussie Open, Boost Juice International. I mean, they've got over 700 sites.
Hang on. I think that was the sponsors. This is the Tech on Toast podcast. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Tech on Toast podcast. And this is a take two for me. First time this has happened. We're joined by Rachel Mazing, People Director of ETM Group. Rachel, how did you break this last time?
Wasn't me, it was you.
Yes, that's what everyone says to me. Everyone in my life says that to me. So yeah, basically me and Rachel recorded probably about 12 weeks ago. And it looked beautiful, as Rachel does all the time. But then when I went to edit it, there was no noise. For some people, that's a good thing maybe in our lives. But for us, not a great podcast.
Not for a good podcast, yeah.
So anyway, I'm acting like everyone knows you. So who are you, Rachel, and what do you do?
I'm Rachel Mussing, People Director at ETM Group.
And what is ETM Group?
ETM Group is a rich collection of pubs, bars and restaurants, all London-based, which is wonderful. We've just moved into a new office and we have about 8 venues, all within 5-10 minutes of each other. So, yeah, very, very London-centric. We have some wonderful sports bars, which make for great destination sports locations, watching whatever might be on. For
Football
example, Football tonight, but Friday.
Oh, is that the rugby
Blacks.
thing? Do you know
All
what?
Blacks Argentina.
I live in Wales, so I have to like rugby.
Okay, but you don't really.
But I don't. It's wrong shaped ball for me. I'm from Liverpool originally. But I watched the New Zealand Ireland game.
Yes.
Oh my God.
How good was it?
Amazing.
I know.
But then because of that, I watched the France game on the night after, I think. And it was France versus, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed I don't know this. But it was insane. And me and my daughter watched it for the first half. And they were brutal.
So now you're rugby fans?
I've always watched Six Nations and World Cup, but I never really watched it in between. But yes. I was impressed. I really, really great show. French put on a great show as well. I thought it was really cool. Are you an All Black fan, are you?
I am at the moment. Currently. Currently while we're winning.
But where are you from?
Yes, I am from New Zealand.
I was kind of leading you down the path there,
Thank you. Haven't followed rugby at all.
Is that allowed in your country?
Nobody's checked in so far.
It's the same in Wales, trust me. Like literally, I think what the difference is that everybody loves it. Football can be, before recently, it was quite a blokey game. Everybody loves football, or men love football at that point. But in rugby, it's very different. The crowds have always been different. It's always very much family orientated. Girls, boys, especially in Wales anyway. Drinking for all ages. It's fantastic. Anyway, I could digress, but I will. And tell me a little bit about tech in your world, because this is the Tech on Toast podcast. Who's managing that side of it in your business, and kind of what involvement do you have, I suppose?
So we have a head of IT, but each department is sort of responsible for coming up with the ideas and the solutions they want to implement into the business. I think as a business, we're very open to tech. We're open to introducing new ways of working and anything that's going to bring efficiency. I think what's really important, though, when you have lots of ideas from all different directions coming onto the table, is that you do have someone that's making sure that those systems are integrated to each other.
The adult in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. And our head of IT is that. He's very strategic and going forward, certainly with him in the business, the idea is to make sure that they all integrate seamlessly and we're getting the best out of them. So I think it's important to have someone that heads that up from an overall perspective.
And what about I'd love your opinion generally on, can I call it people tech? Or tech behind people, I suppose, in the industry? Because I've got some colleagues and friends who tell me that actually it hasn't advanced a lot over the last 10, 15 years. There's some better solutions, but they probably don't. They think in terms of online ordering and all the stuff, front of house seems to be moving on and on and on. But what's your opinion of it? Is it helping you move forward generally, or through your career? Have you seen it change?
Yeah, I actually think that there's a lot of movement and evolution in the people tech space. I think at the moment, a lot of it is quite pricey. And I think for the hospitality industry, that's making it a bit of a slower move into our industry, because often resources and budgets are not as big as, in other corporations. So I think that's potentially why we're not seeing it come in so fast. I think there are a lot of solutions out there. A lot of companies that I've talked to, we're at the moment kind of scoping out some software to tackle a few parts of the business, and one of those is around performance management and getting better visibility and efficiency.
I remember you reached out ages ago about that. Yeah.
So, for example, things that we've seen, there's some great stuff out there, but of course, when you ask for peers within the business, within the industry that are using it, they don't really have. They don't have any examples of that, because I think the price is quite prohibitive.
Right.
So they'll give you examples of huge corporations, and it looks absolutely wonderful, but of course then the cost around implementing
second mortgage
that.
required.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think there's some really good stuff around there, out there, but most of it sits within those much, much bigger sort of global businesses, and those budgets are completely different.
And one of the people we both share as a colleague, a friend, I don't know what we call him, Mr. Grimshaw. Sounds like someone from Manchester. But Matt Grimshaw, he's built this wonderful thing called UDA. And I know you guys have spoken, but not specifically ETM. But it's interesting what he's trying to do, isn't he? Because he's trying to kind of automate and join the people dots, as it would be, in the people space, where you bring all your different platforms in, workforce management, ATS or whatever, and drag it all together and create a bit of a story. Is that something that you would like to look at? Not necessarily that, but is that where you think there might be a bit of a gap to fill?
I do, because as we've been doing this scoping work, there are two problems. You approach the problem looking for one solution for one part of, let's say, so for a moment in the employee life cycle. So for us, the instigating problem was to say, how can we get better performance reviews? So we went looking for a product that gave us better performance reviews. And what you find is either a product that doesn't do it quite as you want, or you find a product that kind of does too many things. And so you do end up with lots of different software solutions, right? I've got something that does this, and I've got something that does just this and just that. And what Matt and his company UDA is trying to do is saying, okay, well, if that is how you bring in all these solutions that you need, now what you need is something to tie those all together and from the employee perspective, make it look like one system and one seamless experience. Exactly. So it's sort of, if you imagine that, joining the dots is a great analogy, so that from an employee's perspective, they just feel like they're dealing with one interface or one flow of a system, but behind there's lots of different tech solutions that are delivering all those different parts of the employee life cycle.
You should work for Matt. You explained it much better than he does. Every time I ask him, he's like, oh, well, it does this and does that. But that's exactly what it does.
Yeah, I think I've got a grip of it, and I think that is important, because my whole premise about introducing tech into the business is that you want to make processes more efficient.
Yeah.
Efficient, really easy to use, engaging, fun to use in a way. So if we're saying to our employees, and particularly people who've maybe never been in the workplace before, go into this system and do this, and then when you need to do this, log on to another system and
already bored.
I'm already bored.
Yeah.
So it might be that for us, we need those different tech solutions behind the scene, but that shouldn't be an employee's problem.
Love that. So you're not forcing it back down the line, as
exactly.
it would be.
And maybe one day, the software will evolve to a point that you can get systems that kind of do that much more 360 piece. That would be great. And I'm sure that will come in time, but for the moment, we're doing it by kind of tacking on lots of different solutions.
And I imagine most of your job, or a lot of your job, is impacted by people, obviously. Mm-hmm. Most people who work in our business are. And attracting and retaining them must be, I know it's been a challenge for everybody for the last few years. Is tech helping you support that? Or how is it generally for you? Let's part tech for a minute. How is attracting and retaining people in ETM? Are you giving yourself a B plus, A?
What would I rate ourselves? You know what? I was actually just thinking about this now, because I was on the phone with another stalwart of the industry this morning who is doing, and I don't know whether to name or not to name. Okay.
Well, I might edit it out. It depends who it is.
I don't think you will. So Phil Eel from Honest Burgers.
I've seen Phil in 2 weeks, yes.
Okay, right. So they're doing this pineapple,
the pineapple. Yeah, pineapple report. Yeah.
And so, of course, we were talking about turnover numbers and retention numbers and that sort of thing. And I looked at the industry standard, and I looked at our number, and I thought, well, that doesn't look like the industry standard.
That's not it. Why? Was it a negative or a positive?
No, ours is different and
Right.
not in a good way.
But the thing that interests me about this is it geography based? So are you looking at a London stat, or are you looking at so when you're looking at this?
I don't know. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I know that they're working towards is then being able to segment that data and
Right.
saying...
So you got a regional...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a regional. So they don't have that. They've just got a flat number. However,
Just write it down.
one of the things that could be impacting us is, I think, because we're doing lots of new openings...
Yeah.
Those
Your churn.
openings,
Yeah.
you know, and
I think
so
it used to be like 80% churn in college years.
Yeah,
Not
it's-
on the first day, obviously, but you get that first
few
month when
months
someone's
or
taking a
whatever it
job,
is.
they didn't even know what it, you know.
And of course you have that thing where you go, okay, well, I don't know exactly how busy we'll be, but I think we'll be this busy. Let's get all the staff in, because the worst thing is that we
Yeah,
open
yeah.
and we don't have enough staff, and then you
It's
open
the
and you go,
hard-
oh,
no
now
one
I've
will
got-
ever fix that.
And that's difficult. And it was one of the things that I was reflecting on, because we've just opened 2 sites in 1 month. We had a month that was bookended by an opening
Wow.
at either end. And, and of course we're doing that new opening
And
thing. We go,
you're normally
what is our
very
business
stable, right?
levels? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we've got some sites with absolutely great retention, but then, if we look at, we've opened, how many sites have we opened in the last 4 years? I don't know, we've opened about 5 sites in the last 4 years, and so of course you have this, those are the ones with a bit of higher turnover. So I think that we're doing a good job. I think that we're absolutely, we certainly don't look at it and say, oh, that's fine, we'll just, it is what it is. We're constantly looking at those numbers and saying, where does that come from? How do we do better? Which part of that life cycle is adding into those numbers, and we're trying to analyze it all the time.
And you're competitive, right? I can just see.
I am.
Phil has triggered you.
Obviously,
Yeah.
that sharing thing is like, okay, interesting. But I think, I believe so much in how the performance of everyone just becomes so much better the longer they're in the business.
For sure.
And, I've just done 5 years in the business, and I look back at all the things that I've done in that time, and I look at how, being part of the business and understanding the business that you get from being in it for a long time helps you then make the right choices and make the right decisions. And that's on, I'm a director, so that's on a direct level, but even with, a waiter or someone who's coming into those entry-level roles, it takes a while for them to start really impacting the business in a positive way. So you need to make sure that they stay there long enough to really, show their value and give value. Yeah, and one of the things you've got to imagine is it's quite unsettling to join a new job, go through that process, look, apply, interview, all those sorts of things. So if they're leaving within the first 90 days, it's not an easy choice really, because they'll have to go and do it elsewhere. So, we've got people who surely are easy pickings, let's say, for wanting to get involved and make it easy for them not to have to now go and look for another job. But at the same time, they don't have that loyalty. So if you're not going to show them that you're the person that's going to, just take care of them or just provide a great, stable working environment, then that loyalty is so low that, that might just negate the fact that they'll have to go and find something else, because if you don't show them that it's worth it to stay there, it's very easy to walk away at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that my son is looking for a job literally right now. He's only 16, but he's looking for some temporary work, and we went to loads of places offering his CV up. We went to Nando's, and they were brilliant. They literally welcomed him in, looked after him, and they've been absolutely fantastic in his onboarding process. But people leave people, right? Not companies. It's not because ETM Group are doing something seriously wrong. It's because potentially someone in their little journey, their short journey, probably didn't do the right thing or forgot something. Or
and
didn't
that
look
could be
after
on
him.
that tiny scale. That could be their buddy, because maybe their buddy is their only world or their only connection point to the business at that moment. So it's got to be right down all the way to that tiny, tiny detail of that person that's showing them around.
Good luck with that. Yeah. That's why I'm sitting here now and you're sitting there. You've got a lot more patience than me.
But I love it as a challenge, because I feel like if you get it, or if you get part of the way there, or if you're making that better, that's so exciting, because it's such a big impact to have on someone's life.
It's huge. And I had, Borley Borlison came in to talk to me, Travis, and he said to me, the person that hired him into M&B all those years ago when he was younger changed his life. Literally what you just said. And he said, I know that sounds dramatic and grandiose, so he said, but genuinely they changed my life, because my trajectory then through my career was all in hospitality, and if I hadn't have had that boss at that point, I probably wouldn't have done it. And it just shows how important those single people can be during your life cycle.
Absolutely.
So, and you're one of them.
I hope so.
Well, it is the ultimate. It really is, because you will be impacting people's lives at certain times in your career, and especially now what you do, because you're kind of the puppet master.
Yeah. So
That
I've
sounds
just
terrible.
finished a 4-week leadership program with the GMs in the business, and the last session that we do, the last day that we do, is all about legacy. So what is going to be your legacy that you leave on the business, on people's lives, and when you look at what your achievements will have been while you're in this company, what will you remember as being that career significant moment? And all of them had, you know, at least one key figure that they remembered from when they first came into the industry. It's, you know, we all have those people that inspired us. So I think it's so important to remind the GMs that they will be those people in their team members' lives.
It's so mad. When you're in it, you don't even think about it, right? When you're a GM, you're not even thinking I'm impacting people. You're just thinking, get to close.
Just getting things
close,
done. Right,
get the stock
absolutely.
closed, get the, you know. So I think when you look, well, now definitely when I look back, you remember all the people you had impact on, and and you're really grateful for it.
But you know what? I also think that's something that's really, really heightened in hospitality. You know, I've never been an accountant, so I really can't speak on behalf of the accountants, but I feel like, you know, maybe less so in accounting
I think you're right.
careers. I just think that in hospitality, we create moments, you know, whether that be for the guests, and of course that's the ultimate aim, but it's such a dynamic, vibrant, energetic industry and work environment, and the connections that you make are so deep, and hospitality people are just the best anyway, aren't they? So, you know,
really
that electricity of relationships that you make and form in the hospitality industry is really unique.
As well, right?
Yeah.
You make relationships 10 times quicker. That's what I think. I think you spend, because it's pressure and release, pressure and release.
Absolutely.
So
it's friends for life, isn't it? It's friends and,
I feel like I should have that tattooed on my arm. Friends. Maybe not. If I go in with a Friends for Life tattoo, my missus might be worried about me. So, and from that, actually, swerving back into tech, I'm presuming you're getting a lot of data from various things that you use, whether it be from people leaving, from filials, making you sad, or if it's from the other systems you use. How important is that becoming as part of your day-to-day job? I mean, is there too much data? Is it useful data? Does it help you make decisions?
Yeah, I think data is really key. I think so often in business, and I'm sure it's across all business, we say, I think or I feel, you know, and it's not to say that those feelings or instincts are not right. We do have a good sense, but I think it is important to at least verify that with data.
Yeah.
Because you can find that you go off in a different direction, that if you had taken the time to sort of analyze and investigate the data, you know, you might have made a different choice. And I think for us, or for everyone, hospitality is such a fast-paced business with low resources, as I've said before. I think, you know, hospitality budgets are not the biggest. And so time and money is so important. And I think sometimes, probably in a lot of businesses, probably a little bit too much of, I think this is what it is, and rather than the numbers tell me.
Before all the data came, it was all about gut, right? It was all about, like, I used to push my car around the Midlands, you know, just making decisions based on, I think, you know, you sometimes you're 50% there, right? But I think it's really interesting. And I think when you're buying tech or using it, or when you're, I suppose, working around it, what kind, are you looking for ROI in terms of time? Is that what you want back from all this data, from all the data and all the stuff you have, all the pre-work you have to do to work in tech into the business? What's your main ROI on it? Is it money saving, or is it getting time back, or is it efficiencies, or is it all of the above?
All of the above, right. I think. Yeah, I think time savings, that becomes money saving, really, if you think about how that maximizes the output of your team, and maybe having smaller teams and tech assisting in that. It is maybe not quite measurable. I haven't figured out a way to measure it, but that retention piece, because you're making people's lives easier and they're dealing with less problems, or the have to do's within their day become much easier to do, and then they can spend their time on the things that really bring them gratification. So yeah, time, and then of course it's you know, it's will this fit into the budget? That's always, you know, one of the things that comes down to it. Yeah, I've just had a budget meeting this morning.
It's been influenced. She came here very
efficiently. Started my day off with numbers.
Yeah, it's not a good way to start. And I think that generally tech is, obviously, I think it's going to enable and help us in the industry going forward. How do you forget all of your role and park all that for a minute and everything you do at ETM? How do you feel about it? Are you a techie? Do you enjoy that kind of side of things? Are you invested in Like, are you picking up new apps and looking at stuff all the time, or are you someone who can just deal with it and pass it off in your job?
I am not going to say I'm a techie in as much as I'm that way inclined, knowing a lot about it. I love it from the user perspective, though. I love to see new solutions that make. Well, obviously, I have to admit that I usually look at it from a work perspective. So systems that can make interacting with them more engaging, fun. I love any kind of software stuff. So we've looked at, some people software that allows you to have a really personal tone to employees, for example. I think that's really key, particularly when you're working with a big business where people might not necessarily have a sense of the broader company.
Yeah.
If you can have one way of speaking to people that is fluent across the
And that's quite
the whole
key,
business.
right? Because messages get diluted, don't they, as you grow? So you've opened 2 new sites recently.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that crew you were talking to not even 6 weeks ago was not doubled, but you've got an extra, 250 employees probably on the books. And all of a sudden, that messaging can become stretched, doesn't it?
Yeah, and of course, so for example, on that note, things like internal comms platforms and stuff are really key. So any great internal comms solutions where you can speak to the business and they can speak back to you, or there can be sort of a way to create this community aspect. Because, of course, for the most part, people feel quite siloed in their particular venues. And we have about 8 brands between our 17 venues when we have 8 brands. So you might not interact with people from another site, even in terms of supporting with covers or things like that, because you're working across different brands. And so you can feel very part of this particular site and not have that much overview of the other businesses. Whereas things like, wonderful employee comms platforms, internal comms platforms allow there to at least feel for people to get overview what's happening.
Do they engage with it? Like, do the guys, so when you have these platforms, do you find, because I was always a bit, it was early days when it was coming in, when I was like, but I was like, I'll just ring them. But that was me. But are they engaging? Do you get a lot? Do you feel like you get enough out of it?
People engage with it, absolutely, and we've used it in a way that they have to go onto it to do other things.
Get their rota or whatever.
Of course, exactly. Yeah. So they go in it. We've created specific channels which hopefully encourage a little bit more engagement, things like shout outs, so where you could do reward and recognition sort of things and tag people in it. We could always have more, of course, like I would love everyone to be engaged in it, but I think it's given us a nice platform to speak in a communal language, just around our internal values and things, and you'll find that people are using that kind of company language to talk about, whatever they want to share.
That's when you know where you're winning, Rachel, when they start, when they drink the Kool-Aid and they start trotting out the values in a regular conversation. Right. That's brilliant, and I'd love to know a little bit more about Rachel. So are you always working? Do you get a day off?
Saturday, Sunday.
Actually, the only time you do like to go to an event, don't you? You love an event.
Do you know what? Recently, I feel like...
Is that just us that's made you do that? Were you like that before?
No, I think that recently some people have been like, oh, you're going to this event, you're going to that event. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And I've never been to that. And somehow people think that I'm always at events. It's not true. It's not true.
Well, we love having you. I think what's really nice, what we love, I mean, this is not just Tech on Toast, but Atalo and everything else we're involved in, that when operators engage, it's really important because we know everyone's time poor. We know you guys have got a job to do, and the supplier side of the industry are asking you for your help, right, or asking you to be involved for often, I'm sure, no financial recompense for yourself. But do you find it interesting? Do you find the brunches and all this stuff? Is it interesting to you? Does it help you in your job?
Yeah, I love it. I think that anything that gets us talking in new ways is so important. I have been, in the London hospitality scene for a while now, and one of the complaints that I will have is that for whatever reason, and I don't necessarily know what this is right now or off the top of my head, but we talk a lot about the problems that we have because we've been facing problems for years now.
Evergreen.
And it's hard for us to move forward with them. It is hard. And so, before Brexit and before COVID, we were already talking about recruiting challenges.
I'm not laughing at the industry, but I am laughing at the fact that all of my problems I had as an operator, we still have now.
Right. Okay. So, so I'm really, the reason I'm engaged with the conversation, because I'm always hoping that new conversations will come up, new ideas will come up. And I think that can only happen when we talk together.
Love
and
that.
one of the things that I'm really keen on is that if I'm ever invited to participate in a conversation, that it's never from a place of, this is how we do it and that's how you fix it, the end. Because I think that's been people's inclination a lot of the time, to think that they're, let's say, invited to be on a panel or invited to be a part of a conversation as the example of how to fix it.
Yeah.
And so, because no one has it fixed.
No, otherwise you wouldn't have the bloody panel.
Exactly. So because no one actually has the silver bullet, because there isn't one, they talk about the things that they are doing.
Yeah.
And everybody's already doing those things.
Yeah.
If we were to come into a conversation and say, hey, the objective of this conversation is to talk and share ideas about what really is the root of the problem, not to think that you have to come here and give a solution, I think we would have moved faster.
And it's one of the reasons I obsess with getting people that aren't on the circuit. So you don't, when I say the circuit, like, because obviously certain people get asked, like Phil, I'm sure, is asked to do a lot of panels, a lot of stuff, different now because he's on a different journey.
Yeah.
But when he was doing Honest, I'm sure he was asked to do everything, drop of a hat, come and do this, come and do that. And I think that's great. But unless, as you say, there's something different to hear, what's the point?
Right.
And so I think having that conversation, we really appreciate that you, and you see right through that with you in a good way, that actually you are there to offer your support. You're there to kind of say, hey, let's have a conversation.
Right.
If you don't like what I say, that's cool, but I just want to have my ideas heard. And I thought particularly the one you did with us in we toasted a Sunday in Brooklyn. I think we did a brunch there. Yeah, and it was really cool. And I thought what you offered there was interesting. Anyway, she has an agent now. If you need her, she's
speak to me,
today.
speak
She
to my
said, I have to
agent.
say, she's been filming and now a podcast. Is that the same day? Yeah, is that right?
No, that was yesterday.
Oh right, sorry. Superstar Rachel. But anyway, you can book her. Bottle of wine. Is that your price? Champagne, sorry. Doing a misservice there. And anyway, look, that's brilliant. And what about the future for ETM? You've opened 2 sites. Have you got more planned?
Yeah, we've got a really exciting opening next year. Not long away at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's like now.
Yeah. So we've got an amazing opening then. We're going into new destinations,
Ooh,
still
where
in
you going?
London, but we're going to be at Piccadilly Circus, which
Really?
is a big one for us.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's going to be awesome, really exciting.
Which brand, can you tell us?
That is going to be the sports brand.
Oh,
So-
I think, do I know where you're going? Is it right on pitch? Is it right in the, by
Yeah.
Lily White's? Where
Yeah.
Lily White's used to be?
No, not there.
Okay.
It's in a new...
We could play this. Probably not a good podcast for me to sit here guessing what you're doing.
You guess, I'll say yes or no. I'll say hot, cold.
Piccadilly Circus, good.
Piccadilly Circus. So that's amazing. So that's coming up, and obviously we're working towards that already because, there's
yeah.
a lot to put in place for that. That's going to be our new... It's actually going to be the new flagship of the sports brand.
Ooh.
So that's a big opening for us. We have 2 more locations that I can't talk about yet.
So why even bring them up? It's just so rude.
Just because they're not public yet. But yeah, so we've got, things lined up and obviously always scouting for new sites. So
But is that the plan? So you are on a constant opening,
We
not
are.
constant, but a
Yeah.
slightly aggressive. Aggressive? That's not the right word,
I
aggressive.
would say ambitious.
Ambitious, but aggressive sounds violent. That's not right. Ambitious. Okay, good. And what about you? So you're 5 years in the role. Is that right? 5 years in this role? When you were joined as
5
people
years.
director?
No. 5 years in the company, 2 years in the role.
Okay. And if people want to get, I know you're offering your time up to help. We joked about it before, your support for the industry. But if people do want to reach out and kind of ask for your advice about anything, particularly with your interest around the techie side, can they reach you? Are they allowed to contact you directly?
Yeah, of course. I love to have conversations. I really love to talk about our challenges together and not doing any of this. This is what we do. This is what we do. Talk about what we don't do and why you don't do that. And is there even a problem? Let's talk about all the challenges that we have in our business openly and honestly and say, like, why do you think that is? Because there's so much, and I think that actually talking about the problems we're still facing is maybe a starting point to actually get somewhere interesting. So yeah, I'm always open for a
Love
chat.
it. And they can find you on LinkedIn, I presume, rather than giving out your email.
Find me on LinkedIn.
Yes. Thank you very much for coming on. And
Thank you for having me.
You can find Rachel on LinkedIn or at the next speaking event.
Absolutely.
Next Wednesday, we're having an Atolo drinks.
Signed up already.
Right, great. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
Cheers.